Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond, where emotions find a voice and every story leaves behind a lesson worth remembering. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story that touches your heart and opens your mind. It was a rainy evening in a quiet part of the city. The street outside St. Mary's Hospital was unusually deserted, the usual buzz of traffic silenced by the downpour. Dr. Daniel Reed, a young but respected physician known for his compassion, had just finished a long shift in the emergency room. With a stethoscope still slung around his neck, he walked out toward the parking lot, exhausted and mentally drained. But then something caught his eye: a small, hunched figure barely visible in the shadows near the hospital gate. His steps slowed as he saw the person wasn't moving. A girl, no more than 20, lay curled up beside the wall, soaked from head to toe. Her clothes were torn, her face smeared with dirt and bruises, and her bare feet were scratched and muddy. She looked like she had been thrown away by the world. Daniel instinctively rushed to her side. "Miss, can you hear me?" he asked, placing 2 fingers on her wrist to check for a pulse. She was alive, barely conscious, but clearly weak and dehydrated. A few people had noticed the commotion but quickly turned away, not wanting to get involved. One of the hospital guards approached and said dismissively, "She's been here since this morning. We thought she was just another runaway." But Daniel's instincts refused to let him ignore her. He looked at her again. This wasn't just a patient, this was a human being in need. And he wasn't about to let her die on the street. "We're taking her home," he said firmly, lifting the girl into his arms. The guard looked at him as if he were crazy. "Doctor, this could be a problem. You don't even know who she is." "I know she's someone's daughter. And I know I'd never sleep tonight if I left her here," Daniel replied, shielding her from the rain as he carried her to his car. The drive home was quiet. The girl was still unconscious, her head resting against the window. Daniel kept glancing at her through the mirror, already wondering how his wife, Emma, would react. They had only been married a year, and while she had a kind heart, this situation was unusual, even by his standards. As he pulled up to their house, the rain had calmed to a soft drizzle. Daniel parked in the driveway and gently stepped out, carrying the girl in his arms again. He rang the doorbell with his elbow, too occupied to find his keys. Emma opened the door and immediately froze. Her eyes locked onto the girl in his arms. Her breath hitched, her face went pale, and for a second, it seemed as though the world had stopped spinning. "Daniel, who is she?" she asked in a hushed voice, barely audible. "I found her near the hospital. She needs help, Emma. She's in bad shape." Emma didn't respond right away. Her eyes remained glued to the girl's face, her expression unreadable: fear, recognition, and disbelief all flickering at once. Then, slowly, she stepped aside to let them in. As Daniel carried the girl inside and laid her on the couch, he glanced at his wife again. Something was wrong. He didn't know it yet, but this rainy night wasn't just about helping a stranger. It was the beginning of a story that would unravel buried secrets, reunite lost lives, and prove that one act of kindness could change everything. Stay with us for what happens next, and don't forget to subscribe to Storytelling and Beyond, where every story leaves you with something unforgettable. The living room was dimly lit, the warm glow of a floor lamp casting soft shadows on the walls. Rain pattered gently against the windows, the storm now a soft drizzle, as if nature itself had calmed in anticipation of what was about to unfold within the quiet house. Emma stood silently near the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes still fixated on the unconscious girl lying on the couch. Her breath was shallow. Daniel noticed the color hadn't quite returned to his wife's face. "Emma, are you okay?" he asked gently, kneeling beside the girl to check her pulse again. Emma blinked, forcing herself to look away. "Yes. Just surprised, that's all," she replied quickly, but her voice trembled. Daniel didn't press her. He was too focused on the stranger, now covered in a soft blanket. Her breathing had steadied, and her body had stopped shivering. He fetched a warm bowl of soup from the kitchen and placed it on the coffee table, just in case she woke up hungry. As he sat down beside Emma on the edge of the armchair, he finally asked, "You seemed shaken. Did she remind you of someone?" Emma hesitated. "No. Not exactly. I just wasn't expecting this." There was something she wasn't saying, and Daniel felt it, but he let it go for now. The night crept on. Hours passed. Daniel stayed up, dozing off in the chair beside the couch. At some point past midnight, he stirred awake to the sound of a soft whisper. "Where am I?" He looked up. The girl was awake. Her voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper, but her eyes, large, green, and filled with confusion, were open and staring straight at him. "You're safe," Daniel said, moving to kneel beside her again. "I'm Dr. Daniel Reed. I found you near the hospital. You were unconscious in the rain." She tried to sit up but winced in pain, clutching her side. Daniel gently stopped her. "It's okay. Just rest. You're home now, at least for tonight." Tears filled the girl's eyes. "Why did you help me?" The question hung heavy in the air. Daniel gave a soft smile. "Because someone had to." She looked around the cozy room, her gaze landing briefly on Emma, who had returned quietly and was now standing behind Daniel. The girl's expression shifted, something about Emma seemed familiar to her too, but she couldn't place it. I'm Lily," she said finally. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I didn't mean to be a burden." Emma stepped forward, her voice more composed now. "You're not a burden, Lily. Just rest. You'll feel better in the morning." But deep inside, Emma's heart was thudding. Lily. That name. That face. It couldn't be. Yet as the rain continued to fall outside, washing away the grime and the scars of a difficult life, inside that house, a story was about to unfold, one that neither Daniel nor Emma could have imagined. A story that had started long ago, buried in silence and shadows. And now, it was waking up. Morning broke gently over the neighborhood, casting a golden hue through the sheer curtains of the living room. The storm had passed, leaving behind a crisp, clean stillness. Birds chirped softly outside, but inside the house, an unspoken tension clung to the air. Lily stirred on the couch, slowly waking to the scent of toast and coffee drifting in from the kitchen. Her body ached, but it was a comforting ache, the kind that reminded her she was still alive. Her hand instinctively reached for the blanket, clutching it around her thin frame as she sat up. Daniel was already at the dining table, reviewing notes on his tablet. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" She offered a faint smile. "Better. Thank you. For everything." Emma emerged from the kitchen with a tray, toast, eggs, a bowl of fruit, and tea. She placed it carefully on the table without saying a word, her eyes briefly meeting Lily's. There was a softness there now, a silent acknowledgement. Lily's stomach growled audibly, and for the first time in days, she laughed. It was light, unfiltered, and pure. "I guess that answers it." Daniel chuckled, motioning to the food. "Eat as much as you like. You need your strength." As Lily took her first bite, savoring the warmth and flavor, her eyes welled up with tears. She hadn't realized how much she missed the simple feeling of being cared for. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to," Daniel said gently. "Sometimes kindness doesn't come with a price." Emma sat down across from her, hands folded. Her tone was cautious but curious. "Lily, where are you from? You seem familiar." Lily paused, her fork hovering mid-air. "I grew up in Brooksville. But I've been on my own since I was 16. Brooksville." The word hit Emma like a wave. Her mind raced back years ago, in a quiet town not far from here, where she'd left behind more than just her childhood. Her breathing slowed. "Do you remember your parents' names?" she asked, her voice unusually hushed. Lily nodded. "My mother's name was Carol. My father, I never really knew him. He left when I was a baby. Mom died when I was a teenager." Daniel leaned in slightly. "Carol. Carol Hayes?" Lily looked up, surprised. "Yes. You knew her?" Emma's face paled. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, her eyes brimmed with sudden, unspoken emotion. She stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her hands trembling as she held the curtain's edge. Daniel was stunned. "Emma? What is it?" Emma turned around, her voice barely above a whisper. "Carol Hayes was my sister." The room fell into stunned silence. Lily blinked in disbelief. "That's not possible." "My mother never mentioned." "She wouldn't have," Emma said, swallowing hard. "We had a falling out when I was just out of college. I was young, angry, proud. We lost touch. I didn't even know she had a daughter." Lily's eyes filled with tears. The warmth of the home, the kindness of a stranger, none of it had been coincidence. It had been fate, slowly guiding her back to family she never knew she had. Daniel sat back, speechless, as the weight of the moment sank in. This girl they had taken in from the street, she wasn't just a stranger. She was blood. A part of Emma's past that had found its way home. Lily whispered, "You're my aunt." Emma walked toward her, eyes glistening. "Yes. And I failed you, just like I failed your mother. But maybe, just maybe, this is my chance to make it right." As Lily reached out to hold her aunt's hands, the years of separation, pain, and longing dissolved into a single, soul-deep connection. Sometimes the family we lose isn't gone forever. Sometimes, the universe brings them back when we need them most. And in that room, under the soft light of a new day, a broken past quietly began to heal. The days that followed moved like a warm, comforting breeze. Lily settled into the home not as a guest, but as someone reclaiming her place in the world, slowly, gently, and with cautious hope. The heavy weight of the streets began to lift from her shoulders, replaced by something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. Emma, once distant and guarded, became a quiet presence by her side. She began joining Lily in small routines, making breakfast, tending the tiny herb garden behind the house, folding laundry side by side. They didn't speak much about the past, but there was a new tenderness between them, the kind that didn't need words. Forgiveness had begun to blossom not from apologies, but from shared moments. One evening, Lily wandered into the study where Daniel was reading. Her eyes landed on a photograph on the bookshelf, two little girls laughing together, arms around each other, in front of a rusted swing set. "That's Emma and Carol," Daniel said, noticing her gaze. "They were inseparable growing up. But life has a way of pulling people apart." Lily picked up the frame and traced her fingers along her mother's smiling face. "I always wondered if she had someone. She never talked about her family." Daniel nodded solemnly. "She loved Emma deeply, even when they were estranged. She just didn't know how to mend what was broken." Tears welled in Lily's eyes, but this time they didn't fall from sorrow, they came from understanding. She was beginning to see her mother's pain not as abandonment, but as a human flaw. And she was ready to forgive. That night, Emma stood at Lily's bedroom door holding an old box. "I found something," she said softly. Inside were yellowed letters, brittle from age, letters her mother had written but never sent. Some were addressed to Emma, others simply marked for Lily. Together, they sat on the floor and read each one, voices trembling and hearts wide open. The words were raw, filled with regret, love, and hope. One letter to Lily read: "My darling girl, if you ever find this, I want you to know that you are not forgotten. I made mistakes, but I love you more than the stars in the sky. I hope you grow up brave, kind, and full of fire. And I hope, one day, life leads you home." Lily wept silently, clutching the letter to her chest. Emma wrapped her arms around her, whispering, "You are home now." In that moment, the room felt sacred, like a bridge had been built across time and pain, connecting three women who were always meant to find each other. The healing had begun not just in shared blood, but in shared grief, in compassion, and in the courage to face the past without fear. What began as an act of kindness from a stranger had turned into a journey of rediscovery, of finding roots where there had once been none. And for the first time in her life, Lily slept not with one eye open, but with her heart full, her soul light, and her dreams finally safe. Weeks passed, and Lily blossomed like a flower in sunlight she never thought she'd feel again. Her cheeks glowed with color, her eyes lit up with newfound hope, and laughter became a daily sound in the once quiet house. She enrolled in a local program to finish her studies, and every morning, she left the house with a book bag slung over her shoulder, her step steady, her heart strong. Emma began to watch her with quiet pride. There had been a time when the mere mention of her sister's name stirred bitterness in her soul. But Lily had changed that. Her gentleness, her strength, her grace in the face of unimaginable hardship, these had softened the sharp edges of Emma's heart. One evening, as the three of them sat around the dinner table, sharing stories and slices of warm apple pie, Daniel gently took Emma's hand. "You gave her a home when she had nothing," he said. "But more than that, you gave her love. And somehow, in the process, we all healed." Emma nodded, her eyes misty. "I didn't just find my niece," she whispered. "I found the part of myself I'd forgotten. The part that forgives. The part that believes again." Across the table, Lily smiled. "And I found a family I thought I'd lost forever." That night, Lily stood at the window, gazing at the stars. She thought about the cold hospital corridor, the rain-soaked streets, and the kind-hearted doctor who had picked her up from despair. And then she thought of her mother, the woman who had loved her fiercely but had lost her way. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would live a life of kindness, gratitude, and purpose, not just for herself, but for the woman who gave her life, and the family who gave her hope. Because sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin in the darkest places. And sometimes, the love we're looking for is already reaching out if we're just brave enough to accept it. Thank you for watching this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Storytelling and Beyond, where every story goes deeper than words, and every tale has the power to heal. More stories await you, stories that will inspire, move, and uplift. Stay with us, because the next one might just change your life.